So I do tend to meander, so I'll be walking back and forth a little bit. All right, so we have a lot to go over. And I'm going to ask you to open up your minds, right? Just consider the possibility that many of the things that you were taught, many of the direction, the narratives of things that have happened in this country may not have been told to you truthfully. Right? So you start thinking differently about how things have happened. How did we get to this place? Right? So what is here when we're starting off, how many people believe that the 2020 election was legitimate? Legitimate, anybody? Okay. Anybody here believe in the machines? And it's fair. Does anybody believe in the machines? So the distinctive pattern where you can see where we are, this is not a Democrat versus Republican thing. This is the people versus the permanent political class. This is us against the aristocracy, if you will. It's an old story, but it can get down even more. This is good versus evil, right? So can you define it? Where can you define where someone is? The election of 2020 was clearly stolen. It's an operation called the Color Revolution, which we'll go into, right? And if you come to a politician and they're unable to say that was a stolen election, then you know what side they're on. There is no in between. If you ask them, do you believe that the machines can be completely unvulnerable? We can trust them completely. And they say, absolutely, you know what side they're on. That is there's no drama. There doesn't need to be any outrage. You just need to know where they are. What's really important for you, all of you in this room, have done so much in your lives to achieve what you've tried to achieve. Everybody in this room, right? You're baby boomers, right? What a generation. What a story. You want to see it? Go watch Forrest Gump. What a story, right? Now here you are, and you're sitting here looking at this, and you're going, my God, this is awful, this is awful, this is awful. It's called frequency outrage. They want to keep you in frequency outrage. The Rockefellers actually changed a radio frequency from 432 to a megahertz that makes people uncomfortable. They want you to be uncomfortable. You are all leaders. So calm down and look at this objectively. So what's the first thing that you do as a leader as you identify the battlefield for what it is, right? There's no reason to complain. Where are we now? You cannot get to point B if you have no idea where point A is. What is DEI? Right? Anybody? Anybody out there? DEI. Equity in particular. What does equity? Equity is equal outcome. In order to achieve equal outcome, you need government force. What is equity? Equity is communism. Communism killed over 200 million people so far. What are you up against as a generation? You are up against communism. That's what this is. And is anybody familiar with the term uniparty? Yep. Right? What is uniparty? One party rule. What is one party rule? Communism. You are up against communism. What did Stalin say? Stalin said there is no God, only Stalin. You are up against godlessness. You are up against evil. My family has dedicated themselves to fighting that. My grandfather fought in World War II, but he also fought in Korea, which was the beginning of the containment policy. And I understand there are more things involved in the containment policy than just the act of what we were doing. But people who were fighting because that's what we believed. He started in Korea in the containment policy to control communism. My father followed up in Vietnam, the containment policy. My wife is from the former Soviet Union, and she saw the collapse of the Soviet Union. And she could tell you stories about that will turn your hair white. Well, it's too late. Right? So it's a horrible idea. And they've put this into the idea of the youth, and they think it's funny. They actually think it's comical. And you'll see kids around with the Russian hammer and sickle, with the Russians right now, who are actually experiencing a renaissance, think is a nightmare. And you'd be surprised, Russians actually look at the United States with a sense of compassion and empathy. Because where are we right now? We're the late Soviet Union. We are on the same socio-economic pattern as the late Soviet Union. So that's where we are. DEI, for you, for me, is the enemy of this state, the enemy of this republic, and we must destroy it by any means possible. It is communism. Don't go over here to these other Republican parties and say, oh, yeah. They are so invested in this. That's how these people make a living. They're terrified. They don't care about you or what you think or what you believe. They make a living in the GOP, right? This is a little corruption, and this consultant pays that consultant. It's not what we do. We work. I don't care about their politics. I don't care about this consultant working for that person. This isn't the NFL, right? But that's it to them. So if you think that you're going to go over to any GOP and reason with them, you're a fool. Do not waste your time with any of it. Let them call you whatever they call you. Do not bother to go into any of those organizations. They will not change because they are desperate. They are mutually damned. One person tells them one person, they're all done. So you're going in there thinking, I believe in this, this, and this. I believe 2 + 2 = 4. And they say, no, it's 5. And that's it. And it upsets you, and you get nothing done. This is the way to do it. Work together. If you have precinct captains or elected precinct committeemen within the GOP, then you go. But if you don't have the votes, don't bother. Even if you do have the votes, it may be not worth it. We have to think about ourselves, about our mindset, how we feel. If we keep discouragement, disillusion, right? And you're going to quit. So be clever. So I really want you to engage your mind. Think, broaden the horizons of what you are, or what you're doing, of this strategy. So the first place we're starting is, what are we fighting? We are fighting communism. Get that straight. That way, you don't try to go and have a debate with a methodology, an ideology that is completely ruthless. It doesn't care about you or your history or your statues or any of it. It will rip it down. It doesn't care. And if you try to go in and negotiate with it, you're just going to frustrate yourself. And ultimately, we make compromises that we never should. Don't do it. So for me, anybody out there that does not know me at all? Out there? Oh, wow, okay. So my name is Keith Brandford. My family came in Alawite County in Virginia hundreds of years ago, over 300 years ago. Right? So we are old Southern family. I have served in the United States Navy, Army Guard, and now the State Guard. I have, and in that whole time I had to work. I was actually a citizen soldier. So the entire time I'm trying to make a living, I actually paid to do it. Many men like me would go and be deployed to do whatever it was, and we would never get credit, always be called a bunch of names, and it's okay. I learned a lot. I was involved in Operation Enduring Freedom, and now I'm the battalion commander for 1st Battalion in the Midlands, Sumter's Battalion. My family is steeped in history. I'm a son of American Revolution, and I am a son of Confederate veterans, and I'm very proud of that. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because we know that we didn't sacrifice our lives and treasures to displace an English king only to have an American one. What we fought for was the right to govern our own affairs. And that's what I want you to hold on to right now, right? Talk about people who've moved down here. This argument is within the 10th Amendment. The solution is within the 10th Amendment. I want you to stop thinking about the Republic, because a commander who defends every outpost defends none. What about South Carolina? What does it mean to you to be a South Carolinian? First. What can we do? People, many of you had to go from your land. People have fled their own, we call them refugees down here in the South. They have left their own land because they can't hold it anymore. And now you're here, and this is where you're going to make your stand. So what does it mean to you to be a South Carolinian, whether you've been here for 100 days or 100 years? That's going to be very important, because that's the way out, right? So for me, I ran in 2010. Did anybody remember Ron Paul? Ron Paul, that was my first one. Campaign for Liberty. The solution to this, what do the commies have? What is their main weapon? Somebody tell me, what's their main weapon? Anybody? Deception, so lies. So are too many? Raise your hand. Brainwashing, propaganda. Right. Their main weapon is the central banks. They have the printing press. And that happened on December 23rd, 1913. Wilson gave away our country. They did it over Christmas break. It was a banking cartel right off of here in Jekyll Isle. And we gave away the ability to control our money, which is the responsibility of our Congress. We gave it to a banking cartel. So when you go into Wells Fargo and say, a generic bank, and you go in there and say, you're transacting with a cartel. That we are responsible for our own money. And what they did is they set up a system where they actually print our money and charge us interest through income tax to pay them back. Because the politicians have access to this machine, they can pay off anybody in the world. That's really where it went. And then what was next? November 22nd, 1963? Anybody? They killed Kennedy, right? And why did they do that? Because he was the first president that started pushing back for us. Because in 1913, they set up debt slavery. That's what they did. So look at my life. Now, I went to a school in Virginia. I was at Virginia Tech at 16 years old. I had a credit card within no time. Student loans to pay half of it. I worked for the other half as a framer. By the time I got out of school, I was in debt. I joined the military to get out of it. Right? Then you get the car. Then you get the house. Next thing, you get the health insurance, and you have to go to work. They set up the public school system where it has bells and dings, just like the Prussian factory workers. All they wanted to do was set up a culture where they can live it up, and us are the working class with no way out. I'm sorry, if you really believe that Gates and Zuckerberg were like miracle people, you really need to do some research. There is no way out of their system. They created it. They trapped you. Right? And then they use the television to keep you there. They keep you distracted with sports. And all. So this is this thing that we've been into. And it's so funny because in the military they teach us to bubble, right? You bubble, you bubble, you bubble. And I was working on it, and I kept going, who is at the top of this thing? Here's the Rockefellers, here's this. Who's at the top of this thing? And it dawned on me, like, that's the damn devil. It's evil. Right at the top, evil. So who in the world do I work for? Do I work for any man? No. I work for God. And every morning I pray for his will for me and the power to carry it out. That's what I do every day. Right? And I believe that that's going to be the only way out. So now, back to politics. I ran in 2010. I ran in U.S. District 1 again when we had the special election. Do you remember that? With Scott going to the Senate. And then I ran one more time to finish it all up, and I was done. I was completely out. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. The whole time that I ran, I tried to tell people a critical path is a critical path. You can talk about universal health care over here, but if you're not talking about the money system, you're not talking about anything. You keep getting distracted by the shiny, angry thing. Take away their money, they can't do anything. I tried for 10 years. Finally, I just said, they're not going to get it. I'm out of here. Good luck to them. And then they tried to mask me. They tried to mask me and my children. These animals came out and said a piece of paper across my face would prevent me from getting something smaller than a particle of asbestos. They tried to mask me. And that, when we look back at this fight, men like me were out. We were going to let the sheeple do whatever the sheeple do, right? If they want to drive this thing down into the ground, I'm going to survive one way or the other. But when they tried to mask us, we reemerged. Many of us came back out and said, oh, no, you're not doing that. So we came back in, and this fight all started, and I bet you many of you did it. I bet you did. We fought locally, and tell me that wasn't awful. Could you imagine going to these local politicians, and they think they have the power to tell us to turn off our businesses, to stay in our house, to put a piece of paper across our mouths? Who the hell do they think they are? To this day, I cannot believe that they thought that they had the power to do it. And I cannot believe that we as South Carolinians did it. I remember laughing at the Yankees thinking, they'll do it. But we'll never do it here. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Right? But what it did is we re-engaged. We started fighting. What I really learned in this process, and you probably know this too, is they don't care about the rules. They are lawless. They don't care. If they have the law, great. If they don't have the law, great. They're going to do what they want to do, and they're bullies and use the power of the state, and the police go along with it. They do that. So what? Accept it. It's part of the battlefield, right? We're going to accept that that's part of the battlefield. I initially entered in against Nancy Mace. I actually entered that race first, if you remember. And then here comes all the spoilers. And you watch. I'm getting ready to announce here. And there's spoilers. There's people who say they're patriots and they hop in. So I talked with the team, with President Trump's team, and it was a better fit for me to switch over to Secretary of State. And there was we did a little nuance there, ran for Secretary of State. 85,000 votes on $4,000, right? So listen to what these people say to you, any of you out there. And I really encourage any one of you, you have the guts, run. And here's what these politicians will say. And I really want you to hear this. We have a politician here in South Carolina that actually said, you cannot even hope to run unless you have $6 million. That's what they said. That's what they think. So let's go back to that little Prussian model of you getting up to work for your little bells at 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. They never do any of that, right? So they're telling you peasants, oh, if you don't have $6 million, you'll never get elected. So don't even bother trying. Leave it for us elites. We'll do it. We'll handle it for you. So that's complete and utter nonsense. The hubris is outrageous, right? And I showed with the lowest amount of money per vote that it's a complete lie. So don't you believe it. When you want to run for office, run. And this room right here, all of us together will help you. That's what we do. So what am I doing now? Right now, officially, in this room, I have done this before and people know this, but I will tell you right now, this is my official declaration that I am entering into the 2026 primary against Lindsey Graham. So, and that's what they're going to say. You know, you don't have enough money. We can't do it. And I'm not, this is my last run. So even when we win, which we can, I'm not coming back. That 6 years is enough. I've done so much for my country. My family is tired. And when my children found out that we were going to do this, they actually cried. Nobody wants to do this. We don't want to. In the last run, they called my wife a Russian spy and my children half Russian mutts. We've been dedicated to this country for hundreds of years. We fought in every engagement you can think of, and it's hard. So don't think that this is going to be easy, and we need your prayers because they're going to come after us. They lie. They lie. They make things up. Let me give you this about myself personally. And again, I believe this is a spiritual war. And why? Because I have personal reference. In my 20s, my early 20s, I was a worthless piece of human garbage. I was a self-absorbed, spoiled little brat. I came from a private school. I came from a family. There was a Blandford high school. There's a Blandford church, if you don't know, in Petersburg, blah, 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 right? I come down to Charleston and I'm just all that. Well, I was on my path to alcoholism, without a doubt. I wasted money. I was barely functioning when I was going to work. I was stealing time from my employer, and he knows it. I love you, right? And what ended up happening, I could not do it anymore. And I remember feeling sick, and I would be all Thursday, Friday, Saturday, party all night long. And if there was a God in my life, it was so that I could say, when things didn't happen, or there were repercussions because of my own actions, things happened because of me, I could blame that on God and hate him for it. That's what I did. Right? But about 25 years old, I was at a place where I just couldn't function anymore. I remember being in the bathtub, trying to get to work, lying in the fetal position with the shower going over me, and finally just saying, God help me, please. And my whole life changed. And this is not a holy, I'm not the paragon of anything. Trust me, I am a hard man. I was an athlete and I'm still a soldier. I'm not claiming to be the paragon of anything. But I will say that my life changed because I surrendered. I gave up my will and decided that I would try to go along with something. It's not paddling against the river, right? And I went with the river, and my life got so much better. I have a beautiful wife. Beautiful. My daughter graduated at 15 years old as a homeschooler. I have a beautiful son. More. If I had gotten what I deserved, I'd be dead. That's what I always say. So where are we as a country? This country was founded on the idea of God, of Christ. They walked around and prayed when they were developing the Constitution, right? And they had that inspiration, that divine inspiration. And over time, that has been taken away from us. Not because we're bad or because we're lazy, but because the devil is incessant. He just keeps going and going. The next thing you know, God is out of the picture. And where are we going? We're going into the shower in the fetal position. That's where we're going. But not you, right? We're going to be there when our country hits the spiritual bottom that it's going to hit. You will be there to put your hand out and say, let me help. Me, I'm going to do a whole month if I told you so. Then I'll put my hand out. But that's where we're going. And that's why, you hear, how many people hear about the white hats? Right? The white hats, right? You hear all these sort of things. And they're doing this to make sure that we learn our lesson. And they're letting this get worse so we get to understand. That's not them, that's God. God is letting this go however God lets it go so that we as a people understand that nothing comes before God. That's how it is. Do politics and religion mix? Yes, they do. Sorry. In the United States, yes, they do. Because who do we work for? Right? And if I love President Trump. I have dedicated my life to helping President Trump. My wife and I have gone overboard for the man, but he is not God. Right? And I can tell you, I spend a good deal of time with the upper brass. Most of you know that, right? And they don't know either. They don't know. So don't put your stock in mankind on this, but come back to one day at a time, understanding where you are and where you want to go. So I am really excited to be able to do that with y'all because down here, y'all are fighters. You can't even. I will say that Charleston is pretty ugly too right now. There's really Lexington just went pretty bad. And anywhere look at Michigan. If anybody see what happened in Michigan, right? The Michigan GOP chair, I know her. And they essentially just, boom, they don't win the election, but later they just say bye and get rid of you in other means, And we need to understand that. You have worked very hard and you have become good at establishing a beachhead, but we still don't know how to hold it. That's fine. We just have to learn. Right? I mean, for us in Charleston, we gave it everything we had. We did quite well. The precinct, the first one, the precinct meetings, or take the precinct captains, we did awesome. But the next level was a little bit harder, and now it's all degrading. So this is another thing that you need to know about this game. We actually do have correspondence where it's coming from the top. So if you look at our chain of command and who it comes from, I'm not going to say names, just think in your mind how it goes. Neoconservative, right? Everybody knows what a neoconservative is? Neoconservative? No? Does everybody know what a neoconservative is? Okay, neoconservative are the old school Romney types, or a Graham, right? Who they're like, we are the head of foreign policy, right? We're going to go out there and police the world. And they usually work in conjunction with the military-industrial complex, right? That would be a Haley. Haley is also a neocon, right? The neocons still have a death grip on the leadership of the RNC. And what you are is essentially populace. You speak for the people. What I am is a true representative of the people. I'm a populist candidate. They don't want you anywhere. So what they've done, and here's how it's shaping up, and we know their strategy. And this is, again, remember when we talked at the beginning, I wanted you to expand your mind, wanted you to think about what they do, right? So at the top, they know they're in trouble, but they need Trump to be arrested, or they need him to get sick, anything they can think of to get rid of Trump. So they have pushed down to get MAGA out of South Carolina. South Carolina is critical. Actually, U.S. District 1 is critical because they're trying to have MAGA eliminated from the local GOPs so that they can create the narrative that the local GOPs support Haley, not Trump. And then when they do whatever they do during the elections, they can say, oh, look, she's got delegates. She needs to keep going. It'll buy them the time that they need to get him arrested or off the ballot. That's what they're doing. So South Carolina, and trust me, I talk with states all over the country. What are the other fake red states? Anybody have an idea? Arkansas, fake red state. Utah, fake red state. Right? It's a particular model. We've learned the fake red state model. Most of the time it involves a particular kind of voting machine. And now, just along those lines, by the way, all of you are leaders. All of you are clever. Be very careful about names and companies. Don't do it. Because if we've seen anything from J6 and the Fed's direction, they will come after us. So be very careful. Don't be stupid. Right? Just, we are all kind of, we can fill in the blanks. Right? So for the fake red state model, they know that South Carolina is the first. Here's where the action is. Here's where you can take action. Because we're frustrated and we want to get at them and we know the picture, but we feel impotent. We feel like we don't have any power. Here's what I'm doing. I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm putting everything into President Trump's campaign. Right? Is that campaign associated with the establishment or whatever? I don't know. I don't care. Are we? No, we're not. So what I'm doing in Charleston is every Saturday, I get together with a group of people and we go out and we door knock. Right? We make phone calls. We're working directly with the campaign structure so that we can deliver a harsh victory in U.S. District 1 to show, no, South Carolina is not buying it. That what do we do that the establishment doesn't? We outwork them, don't we? All of you are here on a Sunday. We outwork them. So I don't have any grand strategy for the moment, but I know what to do today. And today is I'm going to make sure that President Trump gets a resounding victory in South Carolina to send a message to the neoconservatives that this is over. The people want President Trump. We're done with this. Quit the fake primary.
What is the term you used? What kind of a state were you talking about? I don't understand.
Elaborate. Oh, a fake red state.
Fake red.
Utah's got to be one of the worst. I've spoke there and know a lot of the people there. It's actually a model for the UN. I mean, it's pretty shocking what's happening in Utah. You know, and there, who handles the elections? Lieutenant governor. Who was lieutenant governor prior to this governor? Him. I mean, come on. I mean, and for all of us, it shouldn't shock us. I mean, our politicians right now are not our best and brightest. I'm sorry, they're just not. You know. Yes.
What does Trump think about you running against Lindsey Graham when every time Trump comes to South Carolina, he has Lindsey Graham right on his belt? Yeah,
and we had considered that, and you know, I've worked. My wife and I are down there with him, and you know, there's like levels, right? So what we have found is that there are people that are working with Trump who are not necessarily having the best strategy. I don't know how to say it any less dangerous for me. So there may be people who are putting people forward for personal interest. All right. So President Trump has to take. I'm a commanding officer. I have staff. I don't know everything that's going on. So your staff officers give you information. What we did by booing our current representative was effective. That message did come home, and I'll say. There were some exchanges that happened where I was able to communicate that this is a problem. But whatever they're doing, the machinations that they're doing, it's out of my pay grade, and I don't care. And we started this conversation off on what are we going to do to defend South Carolina? Well, I'm certainly not going to wait for them to get that organized and explain it to us. No, we're going to take it on now because this is South Carolina. And what do we not like being told to do? Anything, right? We need a T-shirt that says South Carolina versus all of y'all, right? You know, yes.
Then are you saying that South Carolina is a fake red state?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. Yes, this is a fake red state. Don't make any mistake about it. And it's, you know, based on money. It's a uniparty. You know, we're dealing with the uniparty, and a neoconservative doesn't represent the values of a small government person, period. And what you probably don't know, like Ukraine, complete lie. I mean, matter of fact, we don't have a clue on what anything is, except that if we watch the news, it's probably the opposite, right? So, no, it's not what you think. So what I want to do here, and like we've been over, yep.
Wait, Keith, I just want to clarify something. You're saying that the people in South Carolina are not the fake, it's the people that are running South Carolina.
And what we have to define that, right? So I actually am in coalitions with hardcore Democrats that believe in reparations, right? And that's their thing. They believe that, whatever. But they are Christian, right? And they believe in our right to have a real vote, right? We need to define right now what is what, right? Who is what? Now get that in your mind. This current crop of politicians, these current people in the GOP or DNC, they're not going to do anything. It's going to be us. And what is the watchword for 2024? Recruit. Recruit. We cannot keep shuffling the chairs of the Titanic, right? We need new people. And going out there and saying, we're all going to die, might not be a good recruiting method. Yes.
Soros is a citizen now, right?
A United States citizen? I think he is.
Right.
I think he is.
Why can't he be brought up on treason?
Let's do it, right? What's another policy issue that we can do in South Carolina? We want Soros out. These are realistic things. Number two, we want accountability for things that were done to our republic. Number three, anybody know of the Smith-Mundt Act? No, that's when Obama came in and actually made it legal for the United States government to propagandize Americans. That is true. He did that. He added it. So the Smith-Mundt Act.
Can a state bring somebody?
Yes, we
up on
can.
treason?
The state can pass a law saying that we don't want that garbage here. And we can even play the game that they play. What do? Guns are completely illegal. You can never buy one. They pass the law. It's going to get to the Supreme Court, and eventually it's going to get kicked out years later. Right? So if we want to go for it, let's go for it. So Smith-Mundt Act, is propaganda legal in South Carolina? No. Why not? Right? So what's some other policy things that we want? It's okay, it happens to me too. And mine's Dixie, so it's even worse. All right, so I'm wearing you out. So now I'm done. I'm not going to go any further. So what I want to do, though, is I want to encourage you. All right, so I've been doing this for a long time. And I have been staring at, so people know more about their damn quarterback than they do about their own government. But you know, what a really big tool for me in 2023 was the New Testament. I really went into it, really started, I have, my number one relationship in my life is God, but the New Testament was very helpful. And one of the things that really jumped out at me was when Christ said to the apostles, some of you are going to see, and you're blessed for seeing, and some of you are not. Right? So many people that we encounter are not going to see what you see. So this is so important. We're here together on a Sunday, and I love you, I really do. And I don't want you to go bat. I don't want you to go bonkers. I don't want you to go crazy. I almost said a cuss word. You see me catch myself? I said bat. Yeah, there you go. I don't want you to go crazy. So as the Matrix, you are seeing the Matrix. You actually are seeing it, and you're gravitating to people to explain to you what is really going on. One of the cautions that Christ said is, it's going to be a heavy burden. And you're going to go into conversations, and they're going to want to talk about Clemson versus whomever, and you're like, oh yeah, you're going to be heavy. So, gravitate to the people that are your fellow warriors, and let's get through it together. So what we've done today, number one, what have we done today? We've established we know where we are. We are in a situation where communism is backdooring our country, and it is taking over. That is true. That is where we are. What is one of the methodologies that they used to get us there? They used a color revolution, right? Who are the allies in this? The World Economic Forum, George Soros, and probably China's one level down, the CCP. And so we understand the Legion of Doom. So now you know this is what I'm facing. This isn't about local government guy getting elected. This is big. This is very big. So then you start going as a leader, like, where can I throw a monkey wrench in that? Where can I stop that? And locally, the first thing you can do, what's worse than hatred? Indifference. Don't pay attention to these folks. Don't get involved in their nonsense. You are the worker bees. You are the people that are going to save this state. And all they're going to try to do is get you spun up, wound up, and fight you on things that you may win, and then they'll just change the rules. Don't play their games. Where are we going? You need to know that today. And then you come up to people like me and say, I want to do X. And they'll say, okay, well, let's do it. Right? So that's where we are. Point A today has been established. Point B, I want to give you my point B. Leave me alone. Right? I always say, fences make the best neighbors. I don't even want to say good morning to anybody. I just want to be successful and have a great place to live, and there's nobody taxing me. That's where I want to be. So what is it for you, and how can we all get there? Right? Yes, so I'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So, I know I've been hearing the talk about everyone has to get involved involved and locally. I'm sorry? Water. About getting involved locally and all that. But what my biggest concern is that, I mean, about what I was saying is, it's very, very important to get, involved locally. However, what my biggest concern is we still have this big giant of federal government over us. And if we only have a couple of states that manage to figure this out or see it or change it, then we still have this giant federal government and all that corruption. I lived outside of DC. I've worked elections out there. What I saw in 2020 is I wouldn't have been allowed back in the day in elections. So I don't know. I'm very, very concerned about Trump going to jail. I'm very concerned about the fact that we won't have anybody to be there for us. So what's the answer with that? I mean, because if we do it here locally, we could be squashed by the big giant.
Well, and you probably won't like the answer, but again, I try to not what if it, right,
Yeah.
to death. And one of the biggest things is to live one day at a time, right? Happy, joyous, and fear-free. We can, there's historical precedent, so you can study and look and say, okay, we're like late day Rome. Where are we? Is the federal government big? Yes, it is, but it's actually weaker than you think. It is a dragon that's already dead. It's just its tail's lashing everywhere, destroying things, right? What options do we have? If we don't move forward and take action, then what options? We're not going to roll over and die. So that was something, if you everybody know General Flynn, yes? And he kept saying, take local action, take local action. Well, we did that, and we were somewhat successful, but my biggest pushback has been, well, what now? And the answer is nobody knows. Nobody knows. So what we're going to do is throw things against the wall and see what sticks, right? But I'm certainly not going to roll over and die, right? And for not 1 minute am I going to let our enemies see that I'm afraid, because I'm not, and you aren't either, right? So do we have the solutions to this? No, and I think that's the point. I think the point of this being so complex, I'm a smart man, I am. And I can back you in a corner, I know I can. I cannot figure this out. I cannot strategize my way out of this, and I think that's the point. I think God wants us to return to Him for the solution. To get on our knees and to pray and say, I don't know what to do, I need your help. And He'll reveal it to us as need. We're on a need-to-know basis. I sure wish that I could have the solution, but I don't know. So that's how I answer them. And what's really important to me is, earlier when we were talking in the talk, I worked hard to be happy, joyous, and free. I made all the wrong choices in my life. And now I'm happy, joyous, and free generally. And I don't want anybody taking my joy. And I feel like personally, I'll be happy when is the worst way to live. Because when I achieve whatever it is on the outside of me to make me happy, I'll just think of something else. So I really want to make the choice to be happy now. So all of you are happy warriors, right? Karate Kid, right? Any other questions? Yes.
We had another speaker here one time that was talking about how to get on the ballot as a Republican, you have to go through the blessings of the head of the Republican Party. And it doesn't sound like they're going to give you any blessing. How are you going to get through that?
All I know is that I've run for years, and I didn't even know who they were. And I just paid my fee and did my thing. So that is not true. So, matter of fact, multiple campaigns that I run, I didn't even acknowledge their existence. So I think it's going to cost me a lot of money to file when I have to file. But other than that, they can. I said it, I'm not going to say a bad word. I'm not worried about them. There we go.
First of all, thank you so much for coming and imparting your wisdom, Keith. We really appreciate it. Second of all, if we need to select something to start out doing at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, should it be to do everything we can to get Trump to win the South Carolina primary?
Yes. So that, and again, remember, we have a lot of pent-up frustration. It's just like she said over there, what do we do? You make first things first, right? Critical path. Get Trump to win the primary, even when they change the results for the machine. They can't change it completely, but they'll try to make it look like he didn't win by as much. You make sure you recruit, you door knock, you do whatever you have to make sure that Trump wins resoundingly in South Carolina. That's the best use of your energy from now until it's over, right? And don't get too up in your head. Yes?
You've given us a lot of information today.
Yes.
But would you go over the color revolution again?
Okay, color revolution. Right, so again, you don't want to go fight. Right? And it's hard for me, and probably for a lot of you who are fighters, right? Third generation, get in there and duke it out. They come into a country, they take over the media and the social media, right? So they create the illusion to the people who still believe the news. Can you believe that? People who are watching the news, that the minority, that it's just normal for a dude to dress like a chick and teach kids. They create that illusion, right? And then they ridicule the current leadership. He's a buffoon, he's an idiot, he's a liar, he's a tyrant, blah, blah, blah. They start creating that. Then it's called problem solution, like they create, right? There's oftentimes you'll see that a crisis happens that they had already planned. They've already embedded the media with it, and they have a solution in mind. So a crisis happens, like a George Floyd. You'll see, like, Ukraine is a good builder on that. So with the George Floyd incident, it was a complete mobilization of their assets. So there's usually just a few elites up. There are just a few elites up that own all the media companies. They think about this, and then the event happens that they were planning, and then everything comes out. Like they release it, this massive flood of propaganda. So if you saw how people changed the social media pictures, so Ukraine was the same thing. You know, they have a methodology for the press. So they do that, and then they release provocateurs. These are people who hurt your heart. They rip down, you know, I was amazed as a Southerner. They put stuff all over Lincoln recently. You know, they rip down stuff. They really upset you, and then they scare you, and then they bring you into they change the circumstances of the election, loosen it up a little bit. They come into the election. They use the machines to rig the election. That's a primary method. Is the machines. That's a primary method. Once they're done, they've already got the propaganda ready. Hit it hard, and they censor. And then they actually change the rules of the game, like J6, and they put you in jail without due process. Right? They weaponize the government against the people, and you're done. During that whole process, they break down masculinity. Like the United States has the lowest testosterone in the world, the lowest in the world. Right? They break down the family unit. They break down religion, history, borders, and now you're no country. Kaput. And again, for you, as you're learning this, your politicians or your representatives, they should know what this is. They should be very familiar with what this is. But you ask any of them, ask them. They don't know what they're talking about. They have no idea. They're buffoons. Yes?
Wouldn't it be a good idea to be independent, because they wouldn't know whether they should go after you or not, because they won't know what you're going to really stand for or be for or against.
Well, I'll tell you, I did that initially. I ran in the Libertarian Party. Oh boy, they were fun. Whoa, man, anything goes. And it just, you know, I had like 2.5%. And I actually don't believe a lot of what they say. It's just not my place. So independent can be done, but they won't give you won't, what we're doing, and we have to be honest, right? We're public information officers. That's what we are. That's what you are, right? So you're going to be the person that will be the ambassador of truth. You're going to go out there, and your family members are going to say you're crazy, and you say, well, maybe consider this or consider that. When we're running in a major platform, and it will give us the ability to have people consider something that they might not have considered. If that's all we accomplish, okay, that's all we accomplished. So
That's what the Democrat Party wants to label everybody.
is,
Right. Well, you're not a Democrat, you're one of those.
yeah, but do you tell me that your local GOP isn't doing the same thing?
But if you are an independent, they don't know whether you're one of those or one of theirs.
Well, we've tried it, and we found that you don't get a lot of attraction. I mean, it's a lot of traction, and it's difficult to get into any type of venue. And in this case, because I actually do have political capital now, right? I am a known person, and we can win. We can actually win. So I think that we'll get more of a people will know who I am and who we are, by the way. Yes.
What is the best way to follow you and how can we help you?
The best way to follow me is I've got a True Social. That's all I use. That's the only place you're going to find me. And I have not set up any of the information yet. We're not, until I have to, I will. So the best way is just to call me, right? And I will give you the True Social when I put stuff out there. But you're going to see that we cannot take any unforced errors. This is the United States Senate. This is not the House, right? So we have to be a little more, I love throwing the grenade in the room and watching everybody react. I literally was on the stage with a South Carolina politician where I made up a fake part. I think I called it like a Kalamazoo, something. And I started talking about the benefit of us manufacturing the part. And I said, what do you think? And the politician said, yeah, you're right. We need to start building that. So this is the Senate. We can't play around that much. So you're going to see a lot of I'm not going to be as mean as I usually am. I'm going to be nicer, right? Because it's the Senate. So that's the best way.
Keith Brandford 2.0.
Yes, right. And, I am older. I mean, I'm 51 years old. So, maybe you get more mild, I hope. All right. Questions? Any other questions? Yes.
I was just wondering if you think that there's enough people that are still in the military, in the government, in the National Guard that are of like mind like this to help?
Well, are there constitutionalists, right? And people that take their oath seriously? Of course, there are. And what's the biggest, what can we take away as a people, as a success through all of this? What they want their war. Do not even for a minute think. They thought that Russia would take the bait more, and they didn't. They actually thought Iran would take the bait, and they didn't. Why do you think, as a Virginian, they cut off the face of Robert E. Lee, put it in a smelting pit, and melted it on video where tears were running on the face and released it all over the South? They want us to fight. They need their war. So all of us can take a moment to pat ourselves on the back and say, we didn't take the bait. So out of all the different things that they had planned, they see how we would react. The one way that they didn't think we would react is peacefully. They did not think that. So in the military, do we have support for this republic and for this state? Of course we do. And we should definitely be grateful that smart minds have avoided going to blows. And we will. We're going to get through this without that. Anything else?
Yes, with the evidence and the truth about the steal in 2020, the election, why is that not out there? What are they waiting for?
Yeah, and that's isn't that a great question? So they did all that work for indicting the president for one, so they can always throw in that little sentence, he's under 91 million, blah, blah, blah. But, right, so they'll always say completely unsubstantiated claims, and yet we have our leadership going, oh, it's so true, it's so true. And you're like, okay, if you fancy people at the top have some sort of evidence that's great, please release it now, because I'm tired of seeing that, and I do not have an answer for that. I don't know. And I guess what I look at it like is we're not behind that firewall. There's just a level of strategy that we don't know. But if we're on a need-to-know basis and we're all leaders, then we can affect the area of operation that we have. Try not to get too frustrated about it. And don't read it too much, But I don't. We all feel that. And the thing that I want you to remember this statement too: those who know don't say. Those who know don't say. Those who say don't know. Right? So if someone's out there saying it's because of X, Y, Z, they don't know. They're making all that up. They don't know. Are there good guys in the truther community? Absolutely. And I know who they are. Is there different disinformation in the truther community? Absolutely. That, and real quickly, Flat Earth, remember? Flat Earth went out there. It's a networking thing. It was developed as a military component. There was, I think, 500,000, 2 different contracts. They released it so that they could network and figure out who we are and how fast we could disseminate information. There is false information in the truther community, so they can say, false election, flat earth, tie them together. So don't fall for it. Use your discernment. Any other questions? Well, you did really well. Oh, Kate, what do you got?
Two documents or writings that you should look into is Cloward in Piven, who is the master plan of taking this country down, and it is being followed almost to the number. Yeah. And the other one is Rules for Radicals, which is a method to make Cloward and Piven happen. And those are
Rules for Radicals, good. Yes. And what you do now as leaders, and we've got the whole picture, you go away and you say, how did we defeat the Soviet Union? Right? So this is the same war, and we defeated the Soviet Union. How did we do it? We collapsed their economy, right? Maybe we're starting to see some of that same thing going on here. Maybe there are some people involved in doing that. So how do we do it? We collapse the economy of the deep state. That's how we do it. That's the only way out. All right, I love you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Major Keith Brandford. I hope you keep following him.